Well, if the U.S. and Iran agree on a ceasefire, does that fix everything? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. If you've got a question for me, I want to invite you to go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Once you get to the website, go to the top. There says Ask Bob. Send in your question, and I will get that question answered for you. That's off the website, www.prudentmoney. Make sure that you also sign up for the newsletter email. That list is going to be important that you be on it because we're going to be sending out information and it'll go straight to your inbox. And of course, we do nothing with your email address except put it in a database. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Well, how is the best way to sum up things in the Middle East? I got thinking about this because there is 24-hour-a-day coverage on this thing. I mean, this, if you stop and take a step back and you look at it, this is a big, big deal with no real good options. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But I did find this. If you want to stay as in tune with what's going on as it happens, breaking news, minute by minute, www.aljazeera.com. I actually found that to be a really good resource. But this is how I would describe things. You get threats, you get deadlines, more bombs, more missiles fired, delayed deadlines, more missiles fired, ceasefire agreements, no agreement to ceasefire, and more bombs and missiles. Then a threat to remove Iran from the map. Yeah, well, all kinds of things today and yesterday really as well. And like I said, as we talk through this, you'll see there is just really no, if we look at reality, and I think that the biggest problem that we face here is that you don't know who to believe. And you don't know what is what's accurate. I mean, this is, you take another step back and you go, we are in something that it was kind of a once in a lifetime thing. I don't want to be over dramatic about this, but it's a war. And, the reality is no one is going to sit down and traditionally negotiate. Yeah, this is nothing like that. Then, what you hope is you hope that you can get things settled down and with this ceasefire agreement. And the problem is, and we talked a little bit about this last week, is that the U.S. has President Trump has a 15-point plan. And it's unrealistic. There is no country that's just going to give up everything. Literally everything. The bottom line is what we're looking for is an off-ramp. And you'll hear this term on news outlets, and it's basically a way for President Trump to get an off-ramp off the road we're on right now and get into something where a deal can be reached. He's done that many, many times. And that's typically what ends up happening is everybody steps up to the nuclear edge of the line, and one threatens another, the other threatens the other one. The next set of threats come, and then they shake hands and come to an agreement that they praise both countries. And I hate to be a Debbie Downer on this. I just can't see that happening. And even inside Iran, they're saying it's a low possibility, very low possibility, that we're going to get a ceasefire. And what ends up happening is we have we get a ceasefire for 45, I think it was like 45 days. then someone violates the ceasefire, then what happens? And the threats by Donald Trump are epic. I mean, they are. We're going to take. I think the last one that I heard is the way he described it is taking Iran off the map. But here is the problem that you have, and if it were only that easy, the Strait of Hormuz is this 100 plus mile waterway, and it runs to the side of Iran, and it basically is a ship channel where these big ships full of crude oil can safely get from one side to the next. And it's that position that Iran owns to where they can prevent anybody from going through, or they can prevent anybody going out or entering. So they've got a lot of power. I mean, they control whether or not a tanker will be let in to go that way or will be let out. And it threatens to block. They threaten to block tankers. It also can disrupt global oil flows quickly. Don't forget, 20 to 25% of the oil travels down that access way, down that waterway, every single day, and they have the ability to disrupt global oil flows. That's a big deal. And as we'll see here in just a minute, that there is a huge, huge downside to dismantling Iran. And even though, in past situations, you look at the U.S. and yes, we are a war machine, I guess you would call it. We have the superior technology, the superior military, and Iran's got us in a bad place. And the strait has already been shut down, restricted. They say it's partially closed. I've heard two different situations on that. And disruptions can halt millions of barrels per day. If dismantling Iran, if that were to happen, wouldn't guarantee to fix the problem. Even if Iran were severely weakened, you get the short-term effect, which is worse disruption. So war would likely damage ports, pipelines, and there's two countries I think that have pipelines going underneath in the water, and shipping lanes. Tankers would avoid the area due to risk and the fact that maybe their insurance wouldn't pay if they decided to go through an area like that with all the problems that were going on. And oil supply could drop sharply, which would mean higher prices. So you see that, if you look at the situation at hand, it's a very, very delicate situation. And control of the strait could become chaotic. Because instead of one government that you have controlling everything, you could get militias, you could get a lot of instability. That often makes shipping less predictable, not more. And so this is one of the things I want to get across to you. And I think if you're listening to this right now, I commend you for doing so, just because I truly believe it is very important to get an idea as to how all this would work. So even the best case scenario with wiping Iran off the the map, I mean, there's probably going to be so much damage that it's going to take a while to get everything up to normal. How long do we have? At this point, we are at the lowest emergency reserves that we've had, I think, in history. And even though President Trump says that, the allies will have to come in, allied countries will have to come in because they need the oil. Well, we need the oil too. That's kind of what he's leaving out a bit. Well, we all need the oil, but they should secure it. And historically, the U.S. Navy has stepped in to protect tankers when needed. But of course, that requires ongoing military presence, constant risk of escalation. It's something that I hate to bring out, but kind of the bottom line is Iran is a little bit in control as to what's going on, even though they face a horrific ending or I don't know if you should call it an ending, to a war. They do control the flow of oil and whether or not tankers enter the strait. I think Donald Trump knows he's got a problem on his hands. They are not very, very good options. Meanwhile, you're all of a sudden seeing other countries get involved because they were hit with bombs and missiles as well, neighboring countries. So I talked about this last week, that this was definitely a potential downside, a downside and a consequence for the bombing and the shooting the missiles, because there's other countries that get hit as well, and then they get involved. So you kind of end up with potentially this massive war going. And what also is interesting is, and I don't think this wasn't really made out to be a big deal, but it's something that President Trump has to consider, is by dismantling Iran, he were to commit a crime against humanity, he has potentially committed a war crime. Then you have all of that to sort through. That would be that he took out a hospital. But it's interesting. I went back and I looked at what the qualifications are for that. And he would have to be intentionally doing it, and I think that that's a little bit hard to prove that. But anyway, any war, somebody can be a hospital could be a casualty, a school could be a casualty, any type of a civilian type area. And of course, you've seen in other wars a lot of that happening. But there you have it. I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break and get back because I have a lot to talk about on the other side. This is Bob Brooks. You're listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. We'll be right back. Hello, this is Bob Brooks. Proverbs 22:3 and Proverbs 27:12 are the exact same verse word for word. I call them the stewardship verses of risk. A prudent person foresees danger and takes precautions. The simpleton goes blindly on and suffers the consequences. On the Prudent Money Radio Show, we teach about risk, how to identify it, how to figure it out, and what to do about it. We believe that to be a prudent steward, you have to be a good risk manager. Listen to the Prudent Money Radio Show on Bible School Radio 91.3. Prudent Money, home of the modern day steward movement.
Dynamic, practical, life-changing.
There's no point in going to church and not letting the Christ who gave birth to the church on the day of Pentecost change your life.
Join us each day as Pastor Paul Shepherd applies the timeless truth of Scripture to everyday life. It's Destined for Victory on this great station.
Weekday afternoons at 3:30 here on Bible School Radio, KDKR.
This is Rob Randall, your host and teacher of the Invisible War radio program. The Invisible War is the study of God's Word on how to walk in Christ's victory in the spiritual battles we face against the powers of darkness. Join me every Sunday morning at 9 right here on KDKR and KYJC in Commerce, your station for life.
Welcome back. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Talked about Iran in the first half of the program. If you miss any of the program, you can go to the website, prudentmoney.com. We do post and podcast every program. If you don't want to listen to it at the website, you can always go to whatever platform that you like to listen to podcasts. We're on all of them. So just plug in Prudent Money, and you can we'll get you taken care of. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. And also make sure that you sign up for the Prudent Money e-letter list. All this at prudentmoney.com. To wrap it up, Iran is not acting like a country that is concerned or scared of the massive threats that President Trump is dealing in. I mean, these are some pretty heavy threats. But I think it comes down to 47 years of one country hating the other. And, this is a war. Very messy, just very messy. Meanwhile, the markets are looking for direction. The bond market, we constantly bring up the bond market because that's one market that, at least I feel could really run into a problem. And it's always something that we don't see, you didn't see that coming, that phrase. And that's why we want to keep an eye on the bond market, because it would be so very easy for that to run into a problem. Meanwhile, inflation's going up, gas prices are going up, economic indicators are starting to break down. We're looking at a serious situation, which is called stagflation, where we get inflation and a recession at the same time. And not a good situation, especially in today's situation, where we'll have a brand new Federal Reserve Board, a Federal Reserve chair that President Trump has personally selected. So there's going to be some politics going on there that you really didn't get this last time around, which is not good. I mean, they do things to curtail that from happening. But looking at one other thing that President Trump has done, he's raised the standard to where gasoline providers can carry as much as 15% ethanol gas, which goes up from 10%. That's doing all that to save money, save cost at the cost of fuel. Not good for your car, but I guess could control the cost of the price of gas. And he wants over $1.5 trillion in military spending to occur as well. So it makes you, I guess it comes down to the question: how much is this troubling him, or what's he thinking about doing? So I guess we'll see. The fact that, I think it's a big approach, but this is just the corner he's in. A big approach to say, we're just going to follow through, that we're going to wipe this country off the map, or take an off ramp and do something diplomatic that's only going to delay the situation and put us back in there once again. So we'll see what happens, and we'll take it from there. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it. Got a question for me? Go to the website, www.prudentmoney.com, and there is a link at the top of the page that says Ask Bob. Send it in. I will get you taken care of. That's all at the website. Plus, make sure that you sign up for the newsletter email list, and we'll keep you posted as to what's getting sent out and put on the website. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. I assume that you heard about what happened at Oracle. And Oracle is a huge, huge company. Lots of power in the global tech markets. And they are undertaking company-wide layoffs, affecting up to 18% of its global workforce in 2026. The cuts could reach about 30,000 employees with the goal of freeing cash for large-scale AI data center expansion. Yes, 30,000 employees sounds like a lot. I mean, this is a company that's not having financial problems. They have profits. They're strong. They've been just doing great, incredible business. It comes down to the tie between employment and AI, artificial intelligence, and it's a tough situation. This is why so many CEOs have stepped down, and they've stepped down because of AI and the decisions they have to make. I mean, if you really think about it, you're going to be investing, even though this technology is a valid technology. And I think I've talked about this a lot, is that AI, the biggest problem with it is that it is so far ahead of us, and it's us trying to, corporate America trying to catch up and trying to get, trying to explain what it is, how it works. And I think there's a lack of that. I mean, very simply to that situation, a lack of understanding, a lack of of confidence in jumping in there, because knowing that if you go that AI route, you're going to have to let go of people. And you start looking at that, that's not a good thing for our country. But then again, it's kind of the technology revolution. I was talking to somebody the other day about, RCA back in the 20s was a sign of the times, where new and life-changing technologies would change the world. The car, I think that was 1924 maybe, but in the 20s, the roaring 20s, the golden age. I think that's where Trump gets his idea of how all this looks, is the golden age today. But here's what I don't understand. And we've talked about many, many, many times how the government shuffles around and releases information, and they could be a tad bit, they could be more estimate than they are reality, putting it mildly, putting it nicely. And I've showed you examples of this. What doesn't make sense? Well, the very latest unemployment report, which was conveniently on Good Friday, so we didn't get a whole lot of press. And I'm going to be close on these numbers. I think we had economists predicting, and the economists have gotten this completely wrong for many, many cycles. But the economists were predicting that we would lose 133,000 jobs. Somehow we gained 177,000. So this is expecting me to believe, they are expecting me to believe that small business owners are just hiring people right and left. And, 177, not a bad report, especially for this day and time. So I don't know how accurate that is, and we'll see how it pans out. It seems like, if anything at all, most small business owners are just kind of sitting there doing nothing, waiting and watching things as things develop. I would say it's more like that. So this is an interesting. This is I think a very good example of what's happening. And I've talked about this, about the potential number of layoffs that could occur. I mean, it's hard to assess, but you're talking about an enormous amount of capital, enormous amount of money to get these data and cloud infrastructures up and running, and I'm not really sure how long that takes. But it will be interesting to see how it plays out and what comes of it. So what do you do if you are laid off? Well, tomorrow, that's what we're going to be focusing in on. I've got a list of 10 different things that you want to do, steps you want to take, and we're going to go over that, talk about it in detail. And if you have questions about any of that, you can always go to my website, www.prudentmoney.com, send it in, and I will get it taken care of for you. That's all at the website, www.prudentmoney.com. Well, this is Bob Brooks, and we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.